Let your eyes settle, not on the figure, but on the sky. Look past the icon, the caricature, the meme, and truly see the world that Edvard Munch has painted. It is a sky that is not burning, but bleeding. The clouds are not clouds. They are raw, open wounds stretched across the heavens, great arterial streaks of blood orange and feverish yellow. They do not drift, they writhe, they coil, they scream in silent, violent color. Munch has not painted a sunset, he has painted a hemorrhage of the cosmos. This is not a landscape of peace, but a battlefield of the senses, and it is here, in this violent, synesthetic vortex, that the true horror of the scream begins. The artist gives us a world that is audibly loud, where color has become sound, and the visual field is an assault. It is a radical act of artistic alchemy, transforming the tranquil beauty of a Norwegian fjord into a vessel for pure, unadulterated dread. Notice the lines. Nothing in this world is stable. The shoreline of the fjord below is a living, breathing thing, its curves undulating like a serpent, its deep, melancholic blues and blacks pulling downward into an abyss. The very ground seems to liquefy under the pressure of the sky's onslaught. This is the core of Munch's expressive genius. He makes the inanimate world a participant in the emotional drama. The landscape is not a backdrop for the figure's despair. It is the source of it. The world itself is having a nervous breakdown. The only element of rigid, human-made order is the stark, aggressive diagonal of the bridge's railing. It slices through the composition, rushing from the deep background directly toward us, creating an immediate, dizzying sense of vertigo. There is no escape. The perspective traps us, forcing us onto this walkway, pinning us between the abyss of the water and the inferno of the sky. We are not merely observers of this scene, we are implicated in its terror. And then we arrive at the figure, an icon so familiar it risks being unseen. But look again. This is not quite a human being. It is an effigy of anxiety, an androgynous, embryonic form, stripped of all individuating features, hair, detailed clothing, even a defined skeletal structure. The head is a skull, a memento mori made flesh, its eyes wide, dark pools of incomprehension. The mouth is not merely open, it is a black hole, an O of silent, primal terror that threatens to swallow the entire face. This is not the sound of a specific fright, but the shape of existential dread itself. The hands, slender and boneless, are not just covering the ears to block out a sound. They are pressed inward, cupping the skull, as if to prevent it from shattering under an unbearable psychic pressure. It's a gesture of profound futility. The hands, slender and boneless, are not just covering the ears to block out a sound. They are pressed inward, cupping the skull, as if to prevent it from shattering under an unbearable psychic pressure. Crucially, Munch's own writings reveal a staggering truth. The figure is not the one screaming. Munch described the inspiration as sensing an infinite scream passing through nature. The figure, then, is not the source of the cry, but a receiver, a human antenna trembling with a cosmic vibration of anguish it cannot process. This reframes the entire painting. We are witnessing a moment of horrifying revelation, where the thin veil of reality is torn away, and the silent, indifferent universe reveals its true voice, a shriek of endless, meaningless energy. The two figures in the background, walking away with their backs turned, are essential to this reading. They are the rest of humanity, plodding along in blissful ignorance, cocooned in their mundane reality, oblivious to the existential horror unfolding just feet away. Their presence amplifies the central figure's profound isolation. This is the terror of being the only one who sees, the only one who hears. Munch's brushwork, thin, frantic, and raw, doesn't just depict the scene, it performs it. The paint is scraped and layered, less a rendering of reality and more a direct transcription of a trembling nerve. We are not looking at a picture of anxiety, we are looking at anxiety itself, given form and color. To truly understand the source of this painted scream, we must step off the bridge and into the haunted corridors of Edvard Munch's own mind, and into the anxious twilight of the 19th century. This painting is not a fantasy, it is a testimony. Munch himself provided the key in his diary, writing of a walk at sunset over a fjord in Christiania, now Oslo. I was walking along the road with two friends. Suddenly, the sky turned a bloody red. I stood there, trembling with anxiety, and I sensed an infinite scream passing through nature. This was no mere artistic flourish. It was a deeply personal psychological event, a panic attack transcribed in oil and tempera onto cardboard. Munch's life was a crucible of suffering, forged in the constant presence of death and illness. His mother died of tuberculosis when he was 5. His beloved sister Sophie succumbed to the same disease at 15, an event that would haunt him and surface in his masterpiece, The Sick Child. Another sister was diagnosed with what we would now call schizophrenia. His father, a religious fanatic, tormented the young Edvard with vivid descriptions of hell. Munch would later write, "I inherited two of mankind's most frightful enemies, the heritage of consumption and insanity." His art, therefore, became a form of self-preservation, a way to paint his demons to keep them at bay. He was not interested in the pretty, sun-dappled surfaces of Impressionism. He declared his intention was to study the soul, to paint living people who breathe and feel and suffer and love. He was a pioneer of soul painting. This deeply personal torment found a perfect echo in the broader cultural anxiety of his time, the Fin-de-Siècle, or end of the century. Europe in the 1890s was a continent in the grip of a collective nervous breakdown. The Industrial Revolution had uprooted populations, cramming them into anonymous, alienating cities. Charles Darwin's theories had dislodged humanity from its privileged place at the center of creation, while Friedrich Nietzsche had famously declared that God is dead, leaving a spiritual vacuum in his wake. The certainties of religion, community, and reason that had anchored Western civilization for centuries were crumbling. In Vienna, a young Sigmund Freud was beginning to map the turbulent, irrational world of the unconscious, suggesting that human beings were not masters of their own minds, but puppets of hidden desires and fears. This was an age of spiritual exhaustion, of profound dislocation, and a terrifying new sense of individual isolation. Munch's painting gave this abstract societal dread a face. The screaming figure is the modern individual, stripped bare, confronting the meaninglessness of a godless, mechanical universe. Artistically, Munch was perfectly positioned to channel this zeitgeist. He was part of the symbolist movement, which rejected naturalism in favor of art that explored ideas, emotions, and subjective truths. For symbolists, a painting was not a window onto the world, but a screen onto which the artist projected their inner state. Munch took this philosophy to a radical extreme, pushing it toward what would later be defined as Expressionism. He distorted form and color not for stylistic effect, but to achieve a higher emotional truth. The blood-red sky might not have been literally what he saw, but it was what he felt. The undulating landscape was a physical manifestation of his inner turmoil. He broke the rules of academic painting to invent a new visual language capable of communicating the raw, pre-verbal state of psychological distress. He famously said, "I do not paint what I see, but what I saw." This is a critical distinction. He is not capturing a fleeting moment of light like Monet, but a searing, traumatic memory branded onto his psyche. He painted from the inside out. He painted from the inside out. The scream is therefore more than just autobiography or social commentary. It is a profound philosophical statement. It is a painting about what it feels like to be a fragile, singular consciousness adrift in an overwhelming, indifferent cosmos. It captures the precise moment of existential vertigo, the realization of one's own terrifying freedom and ultimate solitude. It is the visual equivalent of the philosophy of Kierkegaard and later Sartre, a raw depiction of human alienation in the face of an absurd world. A century after its creation, the echo of Munch's scream has not faded. It has amplified, reverberating through the galleries of modern art and the chaotic corridors of popular culture. Its influence was immediate and seismic. The raw emotional honesty and radical distortion of the scream became a foundational text for the German Expressionist movement. Artists like Ernst Ludwig Kirchner and Franz Marc saw in Munch's work a liberation from visual reality, a permission to paint the world not as it appeared, but as it felt. The anguished figures and jarring cityscapes of the Die Brücke group are direct descendants of the lonely figure on that Oslo bridge. But the painting's power transcended the art world. It broke containment, its stark, graphic horror, making it infinitely reproducible, infinitely adoptable. It became a universal shorthand for anxiety. We see its ghost in the films of Ingmar Bergman, its form parodied in The Simpsons, its face on t-shirts, coffee mugs, and, most tellingly, as a digital emoji, the go-to symbol for a very modern, very online form of overwhelming stress. Why has this particular image shown such astonishing resilience? Why does it feel less like a historical artifact from the 1890s and more like a live report from our present? The answer, perhaps, is that Munch did not just paint the anxiety of his time. He painted a fundamental, timeless condition of human consciousness. The anxieties of the Fin-de-Siècle have not vanished. They have simply mutated and intensified. The alienation of the industrial city has evolved into the digital isolation of the social media age, where we are more connected yet feel more alone than ever. The crumbling of religious certainty has given way to an age of political polarization and informational chaos, where objective truth itself seems to be dissolving. The figure, hands pressed to its ears, is a perfect patron saint for the 21st century, an emblem of sensory overload, trying desperately to block out the incessant noise of a 24-hour news cycle, the endless scroll, the constant low-grade hum of global crises. The figure, hands pressed to its ears, is a perfect patron saint for the 21st century, an emblem of sensory overload. Furthermore, we can now read the painting through new, urgent lenses. That blood-red sky, once a symbol of inner turmoil, now reads as a prophetic vision of environmental dread. It is the color of wildfire smoke choking the sun, of apocalyptic sunsets filtered through a polluted atmosphere. The infinite scream passing through nature is no longer just a metaphor for existential angst. It can be heard as the cry of a wounded planet, a silent testament to ecological collapse that only the most sensitive among us, like Munch's figure, are able to perceive. The painting has become an accidental icon for eco-anxiety, reflecting a collective fear that the natural world, which we once saw as a source of solace, has become a source of terror. It speaks to the profound dread of living in a world that feels as if it is actively coming undone, a feeling that is deeply, tragically contemporary. Ultimately, the scream endures because it bypasses our intellect and speaks directly to our nervous system. It is a masterpiece of psychological intuition. It understands that true fear is not about monsters or ghosts. It is about the terrifying fragility of the self. It is the fear of dissolution, of being overwhelmed by forces, internal or external, that are far bigger than we are. It is the sound of the silence inside your own head when you feel utterly, hopelessly alone. Munch's painting holds a mirror up to that feeling, validating it, giving it a form, and in doing so, performing a strange and terrible kind of comfort. It tells us that we are not the first to feel this way, and we will not be the last. The scream that passed through nature in 1893 has never stopped. It continues to echo through time, a permanent, haunting frequency that we can all, in our most vulnerable moments, still hear. What does its echo sound like to you?